Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Carter. I'm an application engineer with Ally PLM Solutions. I want to welcome everyone to our Ally PLM Solid Edge LunchByte series. For those of you not familiar with LunchBytes is a series to briefly explore capabilities within Solid Edge are often overlooked. I see most of you have joined LunchByte, see a lot of familiar names, so that's good. We want our LunchBytes to be valuable to you, so please let us hear your suggestions on topics we should cover, and if you could send those to us via email. There's also a spot on our website, which I'll mention at the end, where you can suggest future LunchBytes topics. If you have any questions regarding today's session, please write them down, and if you could send those to us in an email, that would be great. There are several of you on the line with us today, and I expect several more to join in as we go, so you'll be in listen-only mode. Today's topic is on what's new in ST6. We're going to split this topic into two parts, basically two sessions, part 1 and part 2. Part 2 will conclude next month, so join us again in August. As far as ST6 itself, it should be released to manufacturing later this month. I do not have an exact date. If you want to subscribe to our blog on our website, you can get you can get a notification whenever there's a new blog post, and we will be creating a blog post once it's released to manufacturing. So you would know basically that night, the next day, so to speak, whenever it is released. So if you want to do that, you could get notified. Here's a rough agenda. I don't have many slides. I want to stay in Solid Edge as much as I can. Part 1, we're going to look and mention a couple of items just as you first go into ST6. Some things that are a little different, things like the preferences folder. I'll explain what I mean by that. User persona, or the user interface. Excuse me. There's a YouTube function and screen recording function. And then most of our session today, I want to talk about new enhancements in surfacing in the part environment, and also a quick look at assemblies. For next month, I want to continue on with assemblies and a little different set of tools, sheet metal and draft. So that's kind of the plan for what we're going to cover. First of all, this preferences folder that I'm mentioning is new in ST6. Underneath Solid Edge ST6 in the installation directory, depending on where you install that, you'll see there's a new preferences folder. In the preferences folder, it holds customizations, items like holes.txt, your gauge table, and all those text files, options, material, your pipe threads, and so forth. You see a screenshot there on the right. Also, if you drop license files and you're used to dropping them in the program folder in ST5 and prior, you're going to drop the SELicense.dat in the preferences folder. So a couple things I just want to mention. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but just slight differences that'll help you get going in ST6. Excuse me. This idea of user persona is basically a user experience. When the user first launches ST6 for the first time, you're going to have this window that comes up and basically asks you a question, and based on the answer you give this, it's going to give you a delivered theme out of the box. A theme is basically a mapping of how all your user interface, the radio button, the tabs, the set of tabs with the tools and the command ribbon, the quick access toolbar, and your keyboard shortcuts, how they are delivered, kind of mapped for that initial go. So based on that answer, it's updated with a more user-friendly theme, as I just described. Yes, that theme can be changed after the fact. So if I answer this question and it gives me a theme that I do not want, I can switch themes just as I did in ST5 and prior there. So you'll see there's some assistance, maximum workspace, balance, which is a Solid Edge default. Your custom themes from ST5 will also come across here in the ST6. And whenever I get to working and switching between themes in the demonstration later, you'll probably see a long list of themes, not only what's delivered here with ST6, but what I've had customized over the last couple versions of Solid Edge. Just a mentionable item, there is a YouTube search button, basically a tab that pulls out. You can search for Solid Edge items right inside of Solid Edge. You know, things like Ally PLM LunchBytes, as we place our videos up there. You can use this to capture workflows and your knowledge. You know, you're always doing something, and then 6 months later you got to do that task again, and you may forget over the 6 months. We do a lot with videos here at Ally as a support activity as well, if you've worked with us. Users do need their own personal YouTube account, and videos uploaded through there will have special tags to search with Solid Edge. This YouTube functionality can be turned off using the SE admin, the options file, if desired. I just wanted to point out the YouTube. Even separate from the YouTube, even if you don't go that far, there is a video record. And this screenshot on the left is actually taken in the bottom right of the Solid Edge window, and I can record a video of the Solid Edge screen. Maybe there's a certain workflow I want to remember, and you see some options there how to save that video. So I don't want to spend a lot of time to just make you aware of a few things before we get too far started here. Just a heads up too, I normally run over 30 minutes anyway, just because I talk too much sometimes. But I do have a little extra material, so we may run 40-45 minutes today, just to give you a heads up. So I apologize for doing so, but there's so much stuff, even with 2 sessions, I had to make them a little longer. And there's also more than what we're going to talk about. I'm just kind of hitting the top 10 or so, top 10 list, if you will. Another mentionable item here is the steering wheel update. You see on the left a screenshot of the ST5 steering wheel. Obviously we use with synchronous technology and some other move tools. And on the right you see the new ST6 screenshot. It gives us more vectors or axes to dynamically edit the geometry. Basically what this is allowing you to do is be able to directly click one of those vector directions and maybe not spend as much time manipulating the steering wheel to get a certain axis to move about. Excuse me. So the first big bullet point we want to talk about here is surfacing. A lot of work done with surfacing tools in the part environment, work done in visualization tools, trim surface tools, a new reflective plane, ruled surface, some key point curve enhancements that I think everybody is going to really like, an intersect command between surfaces or sheet bodies, being able to redefine a face or a surface. This is a really, really neat tool. And some bounded surface enhancements and some rendering ideas, some visualization ideas to make your textures, your bump maps look a little more realistic. We're going to talk about all those throughout the demonstration. That's why I kind of went through them quick. One thing that is big throughout the surfacing environment, enhanced here for ST6, is continuity control. So you may recognize maybe from a previous life, or if you are an industrial designer and do a lot of surfacing, ideas like G0, G1, G2 for tangent continuous and curvature continuous. So these ideas have been added in curve commands and surface commands inside of Solid Edge. Have a couple screenshots on the left. We'll look at an example where we create a key point curve with curvature continuous, and on the right we've created a blue surf with tangent continuous. So a lot of control for tangency and continuity in the flow of your surfaces from one face to another. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Here we have a small assembly, this is just a jigsaw. It's a battery-powered jigsaw. And we want to add some features, some different shapes to this. Right now I'm actually working in a high quality mode. I'm going to change it to working, which is just changing the mapping of my view overrides. I'm actually going to go ahead and change this to a white background. I think that'll show up a little better over the web in the GoToMeeting session we're using. I'm going to go ahead and change my display configuration to just look at the body. And one option I want to point out that's new with ST6 is this high quality rendering. So I know you won't see this across the web, but you'll see that it's just kind of it doesn't look bad, but it's just kind of how the reflectivity hits the faces with this high quality rendering. And like I said, I know you can't really see a difference over the web. the flow, the reflectivity, and how it transitions from one surface to another, or in this case one face to another, is much cleaner and much more fluent. So we'll leave that option on. Let me go ahead and edit into this part. Sorry about the coughs there. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a little shape on kind of this lower region. I just turned on a sketch I have drawn, and I'm going to use an offset surface, nothing new here, to create some construction faces. Offset that shape. Let me turn off the design body. I am taking advantage of the ST5 functionality of multi-bodies, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off all my design bodies. And here I just have that offset surface in that planar sketch. With the trim command, notice how I can just go straight to the face, the body in this case, select those curves, and notice how it really automatically projects those. In the past, we would have to do an extra step and project those, and depending on how they extended, it may not know how to remove material. Now with the trim command, you'll notice there's an option to say select a region which you want to remove. So I can actually come in here and remove the regions I want all within one command, and that's the result I get. Let me hide the original sketch, and you see that we've trimmed that out. So that's going to be the basic shape. Now, one thing industrial designers, people do a lot of surfacing, use a lot, maybe in another CAD system, is something called a reflective plane. This is new with ST6. I can show this reflective plane. What it's going to do is show me the result I'm going to get once I do mirror it. And there are some settings with this, you know, which plane do you want to be the reflective plane? Do you want transparency, which would make the left side transparent to a specific slider? I actually have it turned off so it looks like a solid model. So whatever I do on the right, you'll see it'll show the display on the left, even before I mirror it. Another new command here in ST6 is a ruled surface. And we have different options for the ruled surface. I'm going to do one normal to face. We'll look at another option later. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab an edge and specify how long I want it to be. Basically what it's doing is it's taking a line and sweeping it, in this case normal to the face, as it transitions around that edge. I'm going to go ahead and create some other ruled surfaces the same length back through there, and obviously I'm getting the reflective display to show what it'll look like once it's mirrored. I have a shortcut mapped F4 to turn on and off the reflective display, so we're back to the actual geometry, and I'm going to mirror those sheet bodies, surfaces, about my center plane to get the full shape. I want to go ahead and stitch all those together, and once those are stitched together, maybe I want to add an edge blend around to give it a little bit more of a aesthetic shape. So there's my construction. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the jigsaw design body, and I can use my ST5 union tools to select the tool and the target and boolean those together or union those together. So we're booleaning that to the design body. I'm going to come up here to Part Painter and change the color. Let's go ahead and paint that entire feature, kind of match that rubber looking color and texture. Alright, so we've added that, what we're calling the swoosh shape. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually model a headlight shape to the front of this up here where these two black faces are where my cursor is. First thing I'm going to do is offset some geometry once again. Maybe offset that 1 millimeter. And I need to trim back later, so I'm going to go ahead and copy, just with a copy surface command, that inside face there. Remember, I'm only doing the one side because I'm working with symmetry. I can mirror it later. So let me turn off the solid body. So those are the two surfaces I have copied. And I have a sketch created that I just need to project forward to my offset surface. Right? We've used project curve before. And I also have a sketch here for a profile. This is going to be kind of the front curve, if you will, of the shape of the profile. What I'm going to do is just use an extrude command, extruded surface command, and extrude this out a certain width. It doesn't matter how much. And I'm going to call this a strip surface. Okay. What this is going to do is this is going to be a construction, and I mentioned on the slides about controlling continuity, whether it's curvature continuous or tangent continuous. I'm going to use this strip surface to create that tangent continuous shape, which you'll see a little bit later. So this is strictly for construction. The next thing I want to do is create a key point curve. I'm just going to come back here and start at this endpoint. The next thing I'm going to do is new in ST6. I want to hit a Control F to go to a front view. What this is going to do for me is it's actually going to lock my points that I create in this case, the front view. I know in the past using key point curve, you've clicked out there and you really have no control of the depth. That's going to be locked to the view. You'll see that in action here in a minute. If I go to the end conditions, here are the handles we're talking about with tangent continuous. I have a little vector that we can slide to adjust the tangency strength or value, if you will. Down here I'm going to make this one curvature continuous and change that value. If I come back to my point step, I can drag this around and it is still locked to that front view. So we'll tweak that. If I do a Control R to go to a right view, notice how it added this point, but now being in the right view, as I drag that point up, that point's going to stay in the right view. So it's much easier to control our key point curve with the view. Excuse me. The next thing we want to do is actually build a surface, in this case a blue surf, between those curves. Cross sections and guide curves, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my curves. Go ahead and pick up this curve to build the surface in between. And now, before I look at the continuity, if I come up here, there are new surface visualization tools. So I can turn on the visualization, I can create these curvature combs, I can add more of them, change the density, I can change the magnitude, and basically tweak those. As I come over here and look at the continuity, if I change this to tangent continuous, it's going to be tangent continuous to the strip surface, and notice how my curvature cones change as well. So some nice visualization tools to help us see that. Before I finish this, just like we've always had in Blue Surf, I can insert a sketch on the fly, maybe to give it even more control. So I'm just going to create a sketch and a plane normal to curve as it comes through there. Now let's come back and actually edit that sketch. So it's just a B-spline curve. I can use simplify, maybe take away some of those control points, and I want to build some tangency with the control point, making it basically vertical to the endpoint. So this control point, using horizontal vertical, is vertical to this endpoint, kind of building that tangency off. As I grab this curve, you'll notice that as an ST6 enhancement, one side of the curve will have a darker dot for a control vertice, the other side of the curve will have a lighter dot just to help show the curvature. Right? If I bring this out there, now you notice they all have the same color. So just to kind of give that a more rounded shape. So we just tweaked that guide curve, which is obviously going to update the blue surf. Let me go ahead and hide a couple of surfaces here that we don't need anymore. Let me go ahead and hide my sketches and curves. So there we have half of the shape we want. If I turn back on that reflective tool that we saw earlier, now you'll see what I get when I mirror it. Now before we do anything with that, I need to create a ruled surface which will extend back so it intersects with this copy face, so that allows us to trim, is what I'm trying to say. So we have another option. Maybe I do a tapered to plane, and I'm just going to taper it back to this plane. Grab the edge which I want to sweep. I actually hit accept too quick. I had the wrong direction. Not a problem. Let me go back and edit the definition of that, and I'm just going to flip my direction and make this a little longer so it intersects that copied face. There, that looks much better. So it's intersecting with that copied face. If I rotate that guy around, let me turn off the reflective display so you see what we got. So instead of doing several trim commands, trim surface commands, we have a new tool called intersect. So I'm going to come in here and say I want the intersection of these two sheet bodies. With this tool, we can also come in and say which regions do we want to remove. So there's my result. Okay, I want to mirror that to the other side, take advantage of the symmetry. And let's stitch all those faces or surfaces together. In this case, this is a watertight or airtight set of faces, so it can make that a solid. So I'm going to have another body over here in my multi-body section. I'm going to go ahead and rename this body to be called Headlight. If I turn back on the jigsaw body, I need that to sit in there nice and clean, so I can do a subtract, have the jigsaw body as a target, the new headlight body as the tool. Let me do that again, target, tool, and subtract that out so that it fits nice and neat, and basically have a void inside of that tool body, or I'm sorry, the jigsaw body. Okay, let me turn that back off. I want to do a little more work with the headlight, so that's my active body now. I want to create a cutout down on the top of that. So I'm just going to take this profile and cut it down 20 millimeters into that face. Now, right now, this face that I just cut and that is created is a flat planar face. Okay, maybe I need that to have some kind of contour. One of my favorite tools in ST6 is this redefine. I have an option here that will say replace faces on a solid body, so it's going to look like we're actually tweaking and editing this solid body face. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a surface on that face when I select it. So I've grabbed that face. Let me go ahead and preview it. So you see the outline there. I could insert a sketch just like we do with BlueSurf. I could pick an existing plane that intersects that face and create that sketch there just like BlueSurf insert sketch. Or I can do a face U and V. U and V is basically a cross-section and guide curve. I'm going to pick the curve that I want to include in the edit, and there's a tuning step. If I turn on that tuning step, I can grab the curve to edit. This happens to be a key point curve, so I'm going to go ahead and just grab this X direction here. And if I pull this point up, I'm going to keep it in X. This might be kind of hard to see over the web, but let me rotate this over. You see that it's pulled that face up and basically dynamically edited that into that dome shape. For my result, I actually need it down, more of a concave shape. I may be saying that wrong. Concave, I think it's down. And I'm going to pull that down. If I let the internet update here, now you see I have that reverse dome shape. So that was just a planar face that we took and redefined that surface. Very, very neat tool. Okay. Now, the final thing we want to do to this portion is I want to create what would be a lens across here. So I'm going to create another key point curve. Once again, my continuity control, maybe I want curvature continuous up here. Down here, I'm going to do normal to face. Let's make that a little shorter. There we go. So I have my curvature control in my curve, right? That key point curve. So I'm going to create a BlueSurf using the model edges. Okay, now right now you'll see that it's just kind of that linear natural extent. Now my controls, because how they butt up next to the other surfaces, they are not, I do not see tangent continuous or curvature continuous. But I have it in my curve, right? We just saw that. So I'm going to pick that curve as a guide curve. So then that will give me the control desired. Okay. Now, I want to create that yet another body using the ST5 functionality. So I'm going to create another body and call that lens. And come up here and let's go ahead and apply some material thickness to that. So it's a solid body. And if I want to, I can go ahead and paint this, make it a glass color, see-through like a lens would be. So there's that shape. Okay, so there's our headlight. The next thing I want to do, the final thing for this example, like I said, it's 5 till 1 already. I will be running over. I have probably a 10-minute assembly presentation, so bear with me. If you do need to cut out or leave today's webinar, we will have the replay up today or tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to come in here and turn in some geometry. This is a little skid plate down here. Let me hide all the design bodies and just focus on that. So I want to create a key point curve around here like we've been doing, and go ahead and change my curvature control, maybe make this one curvature continuous, this one tangent continuous. Looks good. And we want to talk a little bit about the bounded surface command. So there were some enhancements with ST5. Notice here, if I come in here and just start grabbing edges, as soon as I grab two edges, notice how it previews the bounded surface. It does not have to be a complete closed loop. You'll see that it will extend and calculate as we pick the edges. If I obviously keep continuing around there, it will close off. So that's kind of nice. Also, as you might expect, we do have the tangency control here. Maybe I need tangent continuous over here. Notice I have that strip surface again as a reference. Do a tangent continuous up here on top, or what's on bottom now, and then curvature continuous around here. So we have all that continuity control with our surfacing tools. I don't need that strip surface. And I'm going to mirror that to the other side, take advantage of the symmetry. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch all these surfaces together. And we've had this tool, zebra stripes. I don't know if you guys have used surfacing, you've probably used zebra stripes. And it's going to be hard to see over the web, but you can notice the continuity from one face to another, from one surface to another, as the zebra stripes come across. I could, to save time, I'm not going to finish it, but I could trim that back, thicken that, and then unite that to the rest of the jigsaw. One last thing to mention in this example is some bump map enhancements. So basically those textures that we want to do. So I have this turned on, the high quality rendering. See, it enables display of bump maps, if I can talk here. If I come up to styles, I have a rubber grip started, and I'm going to come in here and add an image to that bump map. Just grab this pebble image, change the height so it sticks out pretty good. There we go, hit the right button helps. And now I'm going to use Part Painter and just grab that rubber grip and paint a couple faces. So I'm going to grab that one. Like I said, I have the rendering setting step, this high quality rendering, and I have the high quality view set, so I know it's probably hard to see across the web, but I do have the texture displayed there. Okay, so that's going to wrap up our surfacing discussion. We want to look at new tools there like ruled surface and the curvature control. All right, the next thing we're going to look at, I know this slide looks a little weak, but I just wanted to show you and just give you kind of a flavor for what's going on with assemblies. First of all, we're going to look at some selection enhancements or even some highlighting, kind of pre-selection enhancements to Pathfinder. We're going to look at the create in place toolbar and how that was enhanced. Create in place meaning create a part in the context of the assembly. And just the overall theme for this demonstration in ST6 and the assembly environment is top-down modeling enhancements, being able to streamline modeling in the context of the assembly, or that top-down approach. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here I have a handlebar brake assembly, and first of all, the selection I was talking about, you notice if I hover over top of this handle, over in the Pathfinder, you'll see that it's highlighted in the 00157_A. So what the difference is, notice how it's actually a shaded tan, orange, whatever color you want to call it, rather than just that red box that we've had in the past. If I actually select it, then it's highlighted in blue. If I come down here and highlight over top of this particular component, you'll see that it's showing me that it's in the 099 subassembly. So if I hover over top of it, you see the actual part is that more shaded dark color, whereas the parent subassembly is being highlighted a more faint color. If I select it, you'll see that it's the dark shaded for the 169, the actual part, and then it's a light blue color for the 099 parent subassembly. So that'll help us find parts in the Pathfinder of the tree. Okay, the first thing we want to do is, and I kind of mentioned I had a lot of themes from the slide. You'll see the sum assistance, maximum workspace, and balance we saw from the slide, as well as my other custom themes. A lot of these came over from my previous versions of Solid Edge. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and change my display configuration here and just focus on this brake reservoir and where we need to build a clamp. So this was wrapping around the handlebar piece there in the assembly. And what I want to do is I want to start a brand new part here at the assembly level. So I'm going to use create in place. Now this dialog, the content's the same in this dialog, but notice how it displays differently. Basically, it's given us a toolbar, whereas previously we've worked all in this dialog. Now everything that is in this dialog we can actually get to in the toolbar. So I can always get back to those options here by clicking the options. So here I'm going to pick the template I want to use. Here's the material I want to use. Do I want to ground the part, yes or no? How do I want to put the part in there, right? Your familiar options, coincident with assembly origin, offset, by graphic input. I'm going to grab by graphic input. Here's my key point filters, so when I start referencing the background assembly, and then this, it's going to go ahead and edit in place. So once it creates the part, the location, it'll go ahead and edit into that component. So what I can do is I can come down here, just reference this face. I'm going to move my cursor over, and with one click I picked up that center point. Now you'll notice it didn't go ahead and edit into the part. I have an accept and a deselect. This gives me the opportunity to deselect and pick if I made a mistake. So once I've picked that point, that's where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and accept. Give the part a name. So basically it's the same idea. It's just a little cleaner toolbar. Gives the user an opportunity to back out and make changes. And then once I'm done, obviously it'll in place activate into the clamp, edit into the clamp. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and go straight to extrude. And with ST5, with synchronous, I can grab a face and go right down here straight to the face and pick the face and extrude it. With ST6, we've added a couple options. So include internal loops. Notice it's taking the exact same shape of that face and extruding it. I didn't have to do an inner part copy or anything with include, draw profile, or nothing. If I come up here and change it to exclude internal loops, notice how it's just doing the outer profile. It's not doing the hole. And finally, if I grab use only internal loops, it's only doing the internal loop. I just grabbed the face and it's saying what pieces of that geometry do you want to extrude. Now I really want to revolve this. So same idea, I'm going to go to revolve. I want to exclude internal loops because I do not want to revolve that hole. So I'm going to come down here and revolve it about this center line and just sweep that around to a point 180 degrees. There's my revolve shape. Now, there were those holes in there. Those need extruded straight out. So I'm going to go back to extrude and I'm going to use only internal loops. So when I grab those faces, I can then pick those and cut those out. I didn't have to go in there and do an include or draw anything or inner part copies just to get to reference. Now I do have a couple of fasteners already sitting in here. These are have the heads on them. So I need to create more of a counterbore shape. So I'm going to come back to an extrude and take that a step farther with ST6. I can grab chain and actually grab the edges of those fasteners. So instead of coming in there and doing include, I picked the geometry directly and extruded it out. Let me hide the previous level. Now here it's just, referencing shape and extrude or cut. So there is kind of cutouts. I don't want to call them dumb cutouts, but you get the idea. They're not holes. So it's not a true counterbore hole, meaning a counterbore hole command. But I can use my ST5 functionality to recognize holes. I can even come in there and give it a little more clearance in the counterbore diameter. Hit OK, and that's going to go ahead and create those as holes or recognize those as holes just as if I'd created those natively. So that's pretty slick. All right, so there you see the fasteners in there. Let me go ahead and go back to the top level assembly and turn those fasteners on, and you see the result. Let me go to another display configuration and let's work with the handle. So I already have a fastener thrown in here just in a simple hole. And I'm going to come up here and create some clipping planes, dynamic clipping planes, so I can dynamically section through the model. If you've never used these before, these are handy. Looking at the dynamic sections, working in certain areas, and also checking for interferences. All right, so I've cut that back just so we kind of see the cross section of that. I'll have that set up. So let me turn off the display here for a minute. And I'm going to turn off the fastener. What I want to do is I want to add some bushings at the top and the bottom. Here in ST6 they added a button called Return to Home folder. What this is going to do, wherever the location where we open this assembly, this 102_A, whatever folder that resides in, when you click that button, it's going to take you to that location. So I'm going to come down here and find my bushing. I'll go ahead and pull that in, use a couple of assembly constraints. I'm just going to use flash fit. Cylinder to cylinder, so we have that constrained. I'm going to do another one, so let me just run a capture fit on that quickly. So when I drag it in, it'll already know the constraints. Okay, so we got the two bushings. Let me turn back on my clipping plane. So there you see, we got the solid part here, we got the two bushings. If I turn off the bushings, you see it's just a simple hole. Obviously there's a big interference there, right, where those bushings are. So one of my favorite tools here when working in the context of the assembly with ST6 is being able to subtract right here from the assembly level. So I'm going to grab that as my target, grab the two bushings as my tool, and it's going to remove that material. Now if I hide those bushings, you see how it's created the negative side of that. I didn't have to go reference any other, create any construction, build any surfaces. It just selected them and did it. If I needed more spacing or a little bit of a tolerance or room in there, I could use synchronous tools to move those faces. So there is my result. Let me turn off the clipping planes, and I'm going to go ahead and hide those fasteners for a second. Another thing, here I am at the assembly level. I can place smart dimensions here at the assembly level. As you know, those smart dimensions, or basically PMI, are read-only, reference only. To actually drive faces, synchronous faces, any PMI dimension, that's only available at the part level. Right? We keep all of our part level, or all of our dimensions, I should say, driving at the part level. What we've added here in ST6, here I'm at a dimension at the assembly level, is this button, Create in Model. What this allows me to do is create a dimension here at the assembly level, make a change, whatever that may be. I actually don't want to change this, and that'll actually drive it down to the part level, and it's editing in part geometry. So if I did something like my face priority and grab that face, you see how that part dimension is associated to that synchronous face. So it allows us to create them at the assembly level and drive them down the parts where we need to edit the synchronous geometry. All right, let's look at another area of this assembly. I'm going to go to this top cover. And here, this is actually the brake reservoir, and we have this top cover already on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and offset this. And you'll notice the top of the reservoir here has this little groove, this male groove, if you will, but the cover is just a flat face. We do not have that groove. We do not have the female side. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back down there. And here, just by going straight to the union command, or I'm sorry, subtract command, I can say I want this to be my target. Whoops, went into another command. Okay, let's do that again. I want this to be my target. I want this to be my tool. I didn't have to build any construction. It basically subtracted that part, that groove out. So if I go ahead and offset this guy once again, you'll see now there's the female side, that groove in there. I didn't have to go build any construction faces. Just said union, where it sits, subtract this from this, tool from target. Very, very handy. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and place a hole. And here, remember, I am at the assembly level. So assembly features, both cutouts and here we're talking about hole. Excuse me. You can create assembly features, create assembly-driven part features, as we've had for a long time. At ST5, the third option came along to create part features, which is basically going to create them here at the assembly, but drive them down into parts. So they're not an assembly features. They're just created from here. In ST5, those features that were created in the part history tree were ordered features. Now you have the ability to create the synchronous features. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and just create this hole. Let me come into our options, just grab the countersunk hole I want. Let me go ahead and change this to a wireframe representation. So here I'm in the profile step, and you'll notice these countersunk holes need to go over these two hole locations. So what do we need to do? Usually we would do an include, right? That would be one solution. We could do an inner part copy with an include, or inner part copy, actually we could snap to those center points. However, another method you could have used is something called peers. Now, prior to ST6, peers, you would have to place the profile, then go in and connect it and do the constraints afterwards. Now with ST6, you see that it allows me to infer those center points on the fly with peers on. So I'm just snapping those center points. Let me go ahead and turn this back to a shaded representation. I only want to cut through the top part. So now if I look at this part, it actually pushed those holes down, and see how they're actually hole features. So it's just as if I was in this part and added these two countersunk holes in the part environment. But I did it at the assembly and pushed them down. Very, very cool. Let me go ahead and turn on, well, let me just do a show on everything. So turn on those screws. One last thing is, notice the shape of this is this very rigid, sharp, sticks out, and then the back of the handle here has some curvature to it. So I'm going to come in here and edit into this part. And I don't know how many of you have used replace face, but it allows you to replace one face with another face, typically construction. Well, taking that idea of streamlining editing in the context of the assembly, I'm going to go to replace face, grab this face, grab this face. Notice how it takes a shape just by clicking those two faces. To finish it off, maybe I need to grab a couple of edge blends to finish that. So you'll notice the theme of this short assemblies presentation is being able to model in the context of assembly, streamline that process a lot. Very, very cool. All right, that wraps up our presentation. Like I said, I know I ran a few minutes over. Thank you for bearing with me. As always, our LunchBytes replays are on our website, www.allyplm.com. You can go underneath resources, select LunchBytes. You can see upcoming LunchBytes topics. Like I said, August 15th is going to be part 2 of what's new in ST6. You can catch our replays here, and this is where you can suggest a topic for future LunchBytes presentations. There's my contact information if you have any questions. Upcoming training offerings, you can check out our website for more information. Our fundamentals, synchronous update if you haven't been using synchronous, advanced techniques, and also I want to point out we are starting to do a geometric dimensioning and tolerancing class, or GD&T. See the dates there for that. All of our classes can be taught online. Like I said, check out our website for more information. I appreciate everyone's attention this afternoon. Hope you found this session informative. Like I said, please email us your suggestions for future topics, or put them on, go to our website and request them. Either way. And any questions you may have had, send me an email. I appreciate your time, and make sure you join us for part 2 next month on August 15th. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.